Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. In ancient Chinese history, the Yuan Dynasty was a very special era. Its rulers were not native Han Chinese from the Central Plains but rather Mongols from the northern steppes. At the time, the Mongol Empire was the most powerful military force in the world, and its armies were unstoppable, earning it the nickname, the Whip of God, in Europe. It can be said that the entire Eurasian continent was the playground of the Mongol cavalry. However, the Yuan dynasty was not the same as the Mongol Empire. Its conquests did not extend to Europe. Rather, it was established by Kublai Khan, a Mongol ruler who hailed from the Yuan dynasty. The name Yuan itself was taken from the greatly auspicious hexagram in the Book of Changes, I Ching, reflecting a certain degree of Chinese cultural influence. Kublai Khan later established his capital in Dadu, which is present-day Beijing, and conquered the southern Song dynasty, unifying the Chinese heartland. So, while the Yuan dynasty is a part of Chinese history, the Mongol Empire is not. At most, the Mongol Empire can be considered a participant. The Mongol Empire originated on the northern steppes, founded by Genghis Khan, Temujin, who, after unifying various Mongol tribes, began his expansion. They successively defeated the Western Xia, Jin, and Western Liao, among other non-Han Chinese regimes in history. By then, the Mongols had become a great empire spanning Eurasia. After Genghis Khan's death, his successors, his son Ogdi and grandson Monk, continued the Mongol expansion. In the west, the Mongol armies were relentless, reaching as far as Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, and the vicinity of Vienna in Austria. Wherever the Mongol cavalry went, Europe trembled. In the south, the southern Song dynasty could only rely on fortified cities to resist. During this process, Genghis Khan's descendants established a series of khanates, with each Khan pledging allegiance to the Great Khan, much like the feudal lords of ancient China. Later, Kublai Khan became the Great Khan of the Mongol Empire and established the Yuan dynasty. In theory, Kublai Khan, as the Great Khan, should have been the supreme ruler of the Mongol Empire, and the Yuan dynasty should have represented the Mongol Empire. However, the Mongol Empire was already in a state of fragmentation. In the west, another direct descendant of Genghis Khan, Erik Bok, with the support of various nobles, also declared himself Khan. This led to a civil war between the two factions, which Kublai Khan ultimately won, capturing and imprisoning Erik Bok. Even so, the khanates in the western part of the Mongol Empire, which now occupied the western part of Eurasia, did not recognize Kublai Khan's leadership as Great Khan. Therefore, at this point, the Mongol Empire had effectively split into separate entities. The territory ruled by the Yuan dynasty was limited to the eastern part, and the actions of the Mongols in Europe were largely unrelated to the Yuan dynasty. Nevertheless, even in its divided state, the Yuan dynasty was a vast empire, encompassing areas such as the Han region, the southern and northern steppes, the northeast, including both outer and inner Manchuria and the Kuril Islands, the eastern part of Xinjiang, with control over the Darim Basin as far west as the Kongarat, the Qinghai-Tibet Plateau, the Penghu Islands, Jeju Island, and various islands in the South China Sea. While the Yuan dynasty is indeed a part of Chinese history, compared to other legitimate Chinese dynasties, it seems more like a conqueror than a successor. During the late Yuan dynasty, in order to maintain the autocratic rule of the Mongol nobility, a policy called the division of the people into four classes was implemented, categorizing Chinese people into four classes, the first class being Mongols, the second being the Simi people, the third being Han people, and the fourth being Southern people. This policy forbade Han people from hunting, learning boxing and martial arts, owning weapons. For example, several families had to share one kitchen knife, congregating to worship gods, conducting trade at markets, and walking at night. The penalty for killing a Mongol was death, for killing a Simi person, a heavy fine in gold, and for killing a Han person, the payment of the price of a donkey. Mongols could arbitrarily occupy farmland, often suddenly driving Han people off fertile fields, leaving them barren, growing wild grass, and facilitating livestock grazing. The Han people suddenly lost the farmland passed down from their ancestors and became serfs without a place to appeal. In summary, during the Yuan dynasty's rule, Han people were more like slaves and were not treated equally. In the late Yuan dynasty, the government ordered the construction of a new Yellow River channel, which required the conscription of a large number of laborers. Due to a lack of economic knowledge, the government also issued a large amount of paper currency, leading to sharp social conflicts toward the end of the Yuan dynasty. Therefore, despite being a powerful dynasty in Chinese history, the Yuan dynasty did not evoke a strong sense of belonging. This was one of the important reasons for the outbreak of uprisings and the fall of the Yuan dynasty. The peasant uprisings during the late Yuan dynasty eventually led to the emergence of powerful forces like Zhu Yuanong, Qing Liang, and Zhang Shiqing. In the end, after Zhu Yuanong defeated the southern warlords, he launched a campaign to conquer the Yuan dynasty in the north. Su De led his troops to capture the Yuan dynasty's capital, Canbalic, modern-day Beijing, and the nationwide rule of the Yuan dynasty came to an end. Emperor Huizong of Yuan fled northward to the grasslands, and Zhu Yuanzhang, believing that he had followed the will of heaven, did not meet fierce resistance from the Yuan dynasty. He posthumously titled him Shun Emperor. Zhu Yuanzhang continued to suppress the remnants of the Yuan dynasty, and in May 1388, he ordered Lan Yu to lead a Ming army of 150,000 in the 6th Northern Expedition. The Ming army crossed the Gobi Desert to defeat the Yuan army and captured over 80,000 prisoners. Emperor Huizong of Yuan and his eldest son, Tianbanu, escaped, but his younger son, Dibaonu, was captured by the Ming army. With this event, the northern Yuan state weakened significantly. In 1388, Emperor Huizong of Yuan and his eldest son, Tianbanu, were assassinated by the descendants of Eric Bok. The Yuan dynasty no longer used era names and the title, Great Yuan, after this event. The Yuan dynasty officially came to an end. This is History and Culture Channel. Like and subscribe are the biggest help and support for us. Thank you everyone. See you next time.